Well, following our theme here today, sideshows versus harsh reality. Why are we as a nation, and why are our political leaders so insistent on getting to the bottom of the Wiener Twitter scandal, on holding people to account for the actions that they have taken, but choose to overlook the treasure trove of information and truth that WikiLeaks has unlocked, forcing us to look in the mirror when it comes to our policies, especially startling revelations about American wars and our relationships with dictators who murder their own people with our own weapons. Don't want to deal with that. Much easier to deal with Anthony Weiner's Twitter account, isn't it? Hypocrisy at work. A grand jury currently trying to determine if prosecutors have a case to file criminal charges against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Protesters staked out the session yesterday from outside. Inside, witnesses were subpoenaed to testify, including our next guest, David House, who helped found the Bradley Manning Support Network and is himself a freelance computer scientist. He pled the Fifth during yesterday's session, but he's here to now talk with us live in an exclusive interview. What, if anything, David, can you tell us about yesterday?
Yesterday was a very bizarre experience. I traveled to Alexandria, Virginia to testify in the WikiLeaks grand jury as part of a subpoena that was improperly served to my Cambridge residence. When I arrived at the Alexandria grand jury, I was told by the prosecution that no note-taking would be allowed inside the grand jury room, a commandment that was legally baseless based on the advice of my attorney. After much debate, which actually ended up pushing the entire grand jury appearance back, I was eventually allowed to go into the grand jury. And during the process of the grand jury, I only gave my name and my date of birth, and I pled the Fifth, First, and Fourth Amendments to every other question that was asked in the grand jury. The prosecution was very upset at my note-taking and ridiculed me the entire time for taking notes, saying things like, "I would like to state for the record, Mr. House is not answering the question and is instead taking notes." And they were very upset and threatened to put my notes under seal until I gave my notes to the attorney afterwards. The whole situation was very bizarre, and I got the impression the prosecution in this case is very tense and very frantic in its desire to link Bradley Manning to Julian Assange.
And that linkage is important. Why?
I believe that the prosecution, or that the DOJ in general, is trying to finish the job it started over 40 years ago, which is the political regulation of the U.S. media. The WikiLeaks affair offers a very prime opportunity for the DOJ to go after WikiLeaks and its 5 media partners, the New York Times, The Guardian, Le Monde, El País, and attempt to embroil these organizations in espionage charges. If the DOJ succeeds in this espionage investigation, if it exceeds in indicting WikiLeaks or its editor Julian Assange, we could be looking at a nation very soon that lives under the thumb of a government censor. And I, for one, don't want to wake up every morning to only read about how glorious the U.S. government is.
And what should we all be doing, those of us who agree with you that the government control of information is antithetical to what makes me an American, probably what makes you an American, and quite honestly makes anybody who considers themselves an American an American. What can we do? What should we do?
The best thing that every American citizen can do that is worried about the WikiLeaks trial is to stand up and tell just 2 friends that they either support WikiLeaks, the ideals of WikiLeaks, or that they are opposed to ethically, the anti-whistleblower grand jury currently convened in Alexandria, Virginia. Public sentiment is going to be very important in this trial. And if the U.S. government is able to spin the WikiLeaks case as being a matter of national security, which it has done in the past, we may be facing a very different nation very soon.
And to put the intensity of the magnitude of the risks that you're describing to our democracy, to our freedom, to our society, to the free flow of information globally at a time when the flow of information is at an all-time high, and you would think that we would be in a renaissance of problem solving, of issues debate, from everything from healthcare to energy to education. Instead, we find ourselves in this nonsense. I'm interested in your observations as to why you think, while the same technology, that meta-universe, the connectivity of the universe, is the very thing that outed, by virtue of Twitter, in this case, Anthony Weiner's picadillo with whatever he's got going, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, But that exact same technology that outed Anthony Weiner is the precise technology that outed America relative to its behavior with our allies, with our wars, with our support for dictators. And we have these righteous politicians, Nancy Pelosi, John Boehner, the President of the United States, Barack Obama. He should resign. He must be held to account for the truth that has been borne witness to us all. And yet the exact same truth is being revealed in much harder truths, much more complex truths, much more relevant truths to the freedom and future of humanity. And the exact same politicians don't seem to want to seek any accountability or resolution. It kind of confuses me.
It is very confusing. WikiLeaks as a media organization has produced more original stories in the past 2 years than media organizations, including the New York Times, have produced in the past 10 years. And the State Department seems to be now funding these democratic uprisings in the Middle East, actually producing software grants so that software writers can help write software and influence these revolutions. Yet the DOJ does not seem to have gotten the message. The DOJ is insistent upon prosecuting WikiLeaks and taking down the New York Times and the Guardian and the other partners in its attempt to regulate the media. And I think the reason for this is, Dylan, that there are some politicians in Washington on Capitol Hill that are very, very embarrassed about the revelations in the WikiLeaks release. And they will do nothing. They will do everything they can to try to clamp down on this release and try to stifle the free flow of information. Because you have to take into account, we are living in a time that is very similar to when the printing press was invented. Yeah. The Internet allows citizens to trade information freely. And the U.S. government is very worried that with this information trading, it will lose its ability to control spin and propaganda in the press. Yep. We as citizens must stand up and defend our right to know what our government is doing.
Hear, hear, David. Listen, keep at it. You always have a platform with us, and I strongly support everything that you just said. I think that those politicians that are afraid of that WikiLeaks information probably feel very similar to the way Anthony Weiner felt after that tweet went out. Unfortunately, Anthony couldn't outrun it. So far, it's unclear as to whether these politicians can outrun it, or whether fortunate or not. The fact of the matter is, I don't think they can, David, and I appreciate your efforts to make sure that they cannot. We'll talk to you next time, David House.
It's up to the American people. Thank you, Dylan.
Yep.